Quite a story. The tale, the web of woe.
In the morning?
That's morning.
Yeah.
Just before the game?
5:45 in the morning.
Joking.
Out of your tree. I'm easier if I leave at midnight on Thursday. I'm a night person. So.
Me too. I love it. Do we want to start or do we want to wait till Bill?
Well, let's wait for a minute.
Yeah, Bill's in the building.
Okay. Gotta figure it out. He's up there.
Yeah.
I didn't see him in his office, but he's
No,
up
I
there.
didn't see. We don't have our little table.
You want the table?
Can we do it, just move chairs up? I mean, we don't need all that elaborate, do you think?
You have to have a mic, so I can get Jason to grab me a mic.
Yes, please.
Jason, can I have a mic?
It's like you're talking to yourself again.
Talking to the glass. Open the glass for me.
And out from behind the door.
Something about the mic.
Oh, yeah, we don't have a table.
I don't. Obviously, they didn't license me for that.
Should we just ask Shelley and Ingrid just to join us?
I know it doesn't have wheels on it.
I'm sure I can use this one. Of course.
Okay, thank you very much, Sean. Why don't we go ahead and start the meeting? Call the meeting to order for the special City Council Ad Hoc on the $20 card tab, August 7th, 2017, and it's a little after 6 o'clock.
Deputy Mayor Wells.
Here.
Councilmember Pelosi. Councilmember DeCoursey.
Here?
Councilmember Baggett.
Here.
Bill just called me and said he's running late.
Okay, Bill's running a little late, but on his way. Thank you very much, Yolanda. Okay, let's look at the consent agenda, the July 3rd, 2017 special meeting minutes.
Your mic's not on.
Can I move to approve the July 3rd, 2017
Your mic.
special meeting minutes?
Sorry, I need your mic on.
Whoops, I'm sorry. I need that too, don't I?
You take care of me.
Yes, I
Thank
do.
you.
Thank you. Thank you. I move to approve the July 3rd, 2017 special meeting minutes.
Second that.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you. The minutes are approved as written. Now we're going to move into discussion items, full spectrum of issues regarding the $20 car tab fee. I want to thank you very much, Shelley, for pulling together this information for us. Do you want to come up to our table? I guess it's not really a podium, and walk us through, once again, the great work that you've pulled together for us.
Spreadsheets. One was handed out with the packet, which is the one that had been prepared
prior to the meeting that was going to be held on the 15th or 16th of July that was canceled, and that was what was included in the packet. And then staff did another memorandum with a packet that had a spreadsheet in it that was a little bit different. It had a few more things on it than the one that had been prepared for the earlier meeting. It's more inclusive. And it also rates by department priority. And these were, so what I'm looking at right now is a spreadsheet that in the lower right-hand corner is the one that was in the memorandum packet that was handed out independently that says August 3rd, 2017, 7:49 a.m.
Are you working at 7:49 a.m. in the morning?
No,
Oh, okay. Okay.
I was thinking about it at 7:49.
I'm sure you were.
But I wasn't working at it.
Okay.
So this is the one that is most complete. It's updated even from the one that was in the packet. It has a few more things on it that we hadn't discussed previously. And what we have here is from CDPW. We have 4 items with costs in 2017 and 2018 that are for the Auburn Environmental Boardwalk, Phase 2, Downtown Wayfinding Program, citywide bridge railing replacements, and citywide street lighting improvements. And they all may be delayed, or some portion of them may be delayed. And the
And can you remind us about the priority is for the 1 to 4 or 1 to 5?
1 is highest and 5 is lowest.
Okay.
And these were rated by Community Development and Public Works. So these ratings aren't across all sections here, just within that community development arena. And I was kind of waiting for Councilmember Pelosa. We're on the spreadsheet that's dated August 3rd, 2017 at 7:49 a.m. Okay?
It's the extra one. Oh. There one should be outside of your regular packet. Okay.
And what I was explaining is the one that was in the packet was the one that was prepared for the meeting on, I think it was the 16th, 15th, 16th of July that was canceled. And then this one was prepared subsequently to that and is a bit more conclusive. It has inclusive, right. Whereas it has the public art on here under parks and the rebuild of the 10th green surrounds and the M&O lunchroom expansion. Those weren't on the original sheet. So we've just covered the CDPW 4 projects that have expenditures in 2017 and 2018 and the ratings for those, and that they can be delayed to the next budget cycle or some portion. In the citywide street lighting improvements, I think some costs have already been expended there. And then under parks, we have the Mary Olson Watts property acquisition, and we have public art, Lakeland Hills Nature Area, and rebuild the 10th green surrounds. Now, Parks Director Faber has indicated that he would like to replace the real estate excise tax funding with parks impact fees for the Mary Olson Farm Watts property acquisition. And remember, we have a matching grant for that. And also the Lakeland Hills Nature Area, he would like to replace the REIT funding with park impact fees on that. He does not have any replacement, however, funding for the public art and rebuild of the 10th green and surrounds. And if you recall the public art, that was included in budget amendment number 1 to add additional funds to do something with the arbor down there by where Big Daddy's used to be, some art
That's a biggie.
structure with the trellis or arbor, or,
Yeah.
I'm not sure what it's. Then, and these were all rated 3, 4, and 5s. And then in facilities, we have several M&O facility improvements maintenance, expansions, that facilities is saying they can be delayed until the next budget cycle, as well as the M&O master planning, and the City Hall exterior structural repairs, and the City Hall roof replacement. Although those are rated a number 1 as a high priority, no work has been done on this project, and the feeling is that they don't have the staffing capacity or the resources to manage these projects in the 2017 or 18 budget years. So those dollars have been put on there. And then finally, we have the projected surplus fund balance in the general fund to reduce ending fund balance from 23.8% to 22%. I would like to add some additional information.
Please, please.
That has arisen since we last met. The state signed their budget at 11:15 on June 30th, on a Friday night. The budget wasn't presented until late Thursday on the 29th, and then it was signed. In that budget, SST, streamlined sales tax mitigation, has been reduced, and it's anticipated that it'll be eliminated after 2019. And Department of Revenue is going to do a Marketplace Fairness Act, where they're going after the out-of-state retailers. They've increased their budget by about $10 million at Department of Revenue to add the resources to do the auditing. They think they'll be very successful with this, and there have been some numbers that have been put together about how Auburn would be impacted under this quasi-Marketplace Fairness Act. And there's also a budget proviso that was put in at the last minute that the legislature has agreed to look at the impact on heavily mitigated cities by the end, sometime during 2019, to see if this Marketplace Fairness Act and the revenues that they think are coming in, if they're offsetting the mitigation. But the anticipation is that they will not. And I've taken what the Department of Revenue has said that the city will receive in mitigation in 18, 19, and a little bit in 20, against what they think the city will get in marketplace fairness through 2023. And there is a deficit to the city over those 5-6 years of almost $4.4 million.
And that's over 6 years, you said?
That's from 20 through 2023, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, yes. So as I think that maybe the committee might want to consider that when we're looking at the fund balance in the general fund. There's still more that's going to come out on the streamlined sales tax. This is the most recent information.
Yeah.
But we met on July 3rd last time, and this came down on July 5. I do have, I put together the information from DOR and did a little spreadsheet if you're interested.
Can you give me a rough estimate of what we receive annually for park mitigation fees or park impact fees?
We have in park impact fees, last time I looked, I think we have about $5.5 million. What we receive annually has increased significantly as the impact fee increased per door, per residential door, to I think it was $3,500 about a year and a half ago. So prior to 2016, maybe mid-2015, we didn't receive a lot, but we've received all this money in the last, I'd say, 18 months, 18 to 24 months.
Could park mitigation fees be used to rebuild the 10th green, the 10th hole at the golf course?
Mitigation fees are to be used for expansion projects, not repair and replacement.
Okay.
It's just like the traffic impact fees
Has to be for new. Yeah.
for new expansion, correct. If we were going to build a new hole, make it a 19-hole golf course,
Or a driving
Expansion.
range, a driving range for 5.5 million. You like that, Daryl? Okay. I do too. So with the Auburn Environmental Boardwalk, could park mitigation fees be used for that? Is that a park?
yes.
That's new construction.
Yeah, that would be enhancing the park, yes.
Did you want to, while we ponder this, Claude, Councilmember DeCoursey, do you want to talk to us and have Ingrid join us a little bit and start the dialogue while I cogitate over some of this and we continue to think? Did you get a chance, did you get a chance to share this with Ingrid?
We just talked briefly.
Okay.
Yeah, we just had a very brief conversation.
Ingrid, do you need an additional copy of this?
She didn't have a copy of it. I didn't give her one, so she,
Do you want me to give her a copy?
yeah, then we can share this.
Councilmember DeCoursey's trying to bring us up.
Pardon? I just ran these off. I'll have to do that, so I'll get you a copy as well, so, yeah. And what this is, just for everybody's edification here, I did some research last week and looking at pavement ratings and happened to find this presentation that was done by Pavement Services Incorporated on a seminar they put on with a slideshow that has their system, which means their software system on pavement ratings and how they go about the process. And my brief conversation with Ingrid is we do use a consultant who does drive in a vehicle and has their technology implemented for looking at our roads and giving us our pavement ratings. So we have an outside third party who does that for us. My basic reason for doing this and looking at this document was just to get an idea of how this is identified in the process of looking at the pavement condition index. And if you look on there are no page numbers on here, unfortunately. There's one called the Pavement Condition Index Overview, and it shows a rating scale. And that rating scale is from 0 to 100. Maybe on the next page or so, Bill, if you keep going. It's this one right
On the
here.
back side of that one,
There you
yeah.
go. Okay. And it's this one right here that shows the condition index. And as Ingrid has kept telling us, a rating of 70 is basically what we're targeting for meeting a satisfactory standard for our roads. And as we saw with the B Street Northwest project, the rating was 0, and of course down here the rating is 0 is no different than our rating, which says failed. When I was looking at this, I was trying to get an idea of how this organization looked at their process of identifying the payment ratings, and they have an entire list of what they look at for the pavement distressing and the cracking and the alligatoring and all that, and how they come up with their rating overall. Kind of the bottom line of it is that when I looked at this, and we had the discussion last time of looking at our pavement rating, the question I have in my mind again is that if we lower the pavement rating, and if we lower it from a 70 to a 65, does that give us any benefit in the cost factor of looking at how we address the condition of the roads and the work that we're going to do. It doesn't give us any more longevity, I understand that. But is there a savings there that we could put into other road projects? Is bringing the level down to 65 not significant enough to impact what we're trying to do to, and they keep using, like I've done before, the word passable, to make our roads passable? Does it give us an opportunity to look at other projects we may not be looking at currently that we could put into the project list and be able to get more work done within staff limitations again? But is that something we can look at in relation to how we would take our PCI and give it that 65 rating and say, from here on out, this is what we're going to attempt to achieve in our roads? So that's kind of an open question.
Okay.
Now, and I want to add to that, or are we, if we do that, are we just playing with numbers? Because to our consumers, you know, they're not going to know if they're driving on a 70 road or a 9, well, they would know if they're driving on a 90 road or a 38, or are we just playing with numbers?
So I would say a little bit of it is playing with numbers. The pavement condition rating, well, we have lots of vendors in the area and in the region that can do the pavement condition rating. They use equipment, lasers and cameras and other things to gather the information that they need that feeds into what that pavement condition rating is. There is still an element of subjectivity from the person doing those ratings as to where they put it in those numbers. So I would like to say it's a perfect exact science, but it's not. I've said before, it's a rough indication of what the street condition is, which is why before we pick a street to do, we actually go out and look at it ourselves to see, do we agree with that rating, or do we think it's actually higher or lower, or what that treatment may be for that actual roadway. Regionally, with PSRC and Transportation 2040, the goal within that is to reach an average of 70 PCI. So from what we're looking at, what our current standard is, and what most of the other agencies in the region are looking for, is to try to get to an average of 70. That doesn't mean that we have to get there in 20 years. That doesn't mean we have to get there in 10 years or in 40 years. When you're looking at how much money are you putting towards the program, it really comes down to how much money can the city put towards the program. And I've mentioned before that whatever we do for the street preservation program has almost a direct impact on our utility rates, especially for water. A lot of the roads that need to be rebuilt within Auburn also need new water lines. So when we go to rebuild those roads, we don't want to not do the water line if we're going to then tear it up within the next 10 to 15 years of that rebuild. We want to do it all at once. Well, that's going to have an impact on what those rates are for water utility. So there's also the other side, too, of how many roadways can be under construction at one time within the city. So as nice as it is to be spending $7 million on preservation this year, when you go out and you drive around, there's a lot of construction going on out there, and it's creating lots of delays. So how much of that do you want to deal with in any given year? So I don't know that you want to change what your ultimate average PCI goal for the city is. It's really, what are you trying to fund in an annual program, knowing you're not going to get to an average PCI of 70 in 20 years if you fund something less than the $7 million we've previously talked about. In your packet, you have another memo after the last meeting where you had requested what would it take to go to an average of 60 in 20 years, and that's about $5.3 million, so meaning we need an additional 3.3 beyond what we currently fund. So if you reduce what you're shooting for in the time period, yes, you can change those numbers, but it all comes down to how much do you actually want to fund.
Do you have a follow-up? Okay.
And thank you for that. I mean, I totally agree with what you're saying, and it helps out a lot when you kind of go back and refresh us in the process overall, especially when we do the total replacement of a road and that. Well, my thought process has been is that there's no way we're going to be able to do $7 million worth of work a year. You know, it's financially impossible. You know, unless the city has this tremendous windfall of of tax money coming in, which I don't ever see we're going to have. And Shelley just kind of rained on our parade with the Fairness Act for sales tax, so of what the state is doing again. So we're going to actually wind up being in worse shape than we were if we didn't have that legislation go through. But what I look at is that where do we need to go to be sustainable? And in the sustainable efforts for me, I like the fact that through the mayor's office, last year $1 million, this year 1.3 has been added to help us out with our road structure work, our road work. My recommendation would be is we find a way to put $1 million a year into our roads program to increase the level of construction slightly, or maybe a little bit more than slightly, but maybe not a total impact to staff. Maybe it does. Maybe we do need another project engineer. We'll have to see, but at least that gives us more financial wherewithal to do a little bit more. And then on top of that, what I would like to see is us to go through the next budget cycle and find a way where we can, in the next budget cycle, look at an additional $500,000, which will give us a total of $1.5 million. And then incrementally over the next years, see how we can increase that to maybe finally get to a point where we could raise it to like $2 million. So, and I would say, although we don't ever get to my opinion, the $7 million, but if we're adding another couple $1 million in over the next 5, 7, 10 years, maybe that gets us to a point where we are more sustainable and can handle some of the issues we need to handle without having to come back to an ad hoc committee like this again and say, what do we do and how do you guys want to do this? And by the way, you got to come up with the money to do it. So those are my recommendations. And I know, Bob, you had a thought process of how we actually put some money in I was called the bank to be able to do that too. And I agree with that process as well.
Yeah, I agree. And I think what we need to do is, right off the bat here, is maybe establish a reserve account specifically for road preservation. Maybe we caveat it by saying that funds in that account could be used in case of emergency or what have you. But I really think we need to start somewhere, and I think that looking at what we've come up with here, $2.8 million is a good start.
Along that same line, I think that if I can take the liberty, and I'm sure that you will all tell me if I'm on the wrong road, but we don't want to solve this immediately. We want to solve it long term. We want to solve it gradually. Thanks to your education of us, we realize it can only be done gradually because we've got, like Shelley said, mitigating things coming from the legislature. And it seems like all the news that we get from the legislature is never helpful financially for us. And we're going to, over the next 4 or 5 years, continue to take these little hits. But one of the outstanding things that you shared with me, Ingrid, was that even if we had a whole bunch more money, we don't have the staff. And so I think that what we would like to see from you is a 5-year or 3-year or 1 year, some kind of a plan that shows how much money, how it's going to grow, and in relationship also to staffing. As you shared with us earlier, and correct me if I'm wrong, we have significant carryover, and even if we put a whole bunch more in there, we don't have the people to manage the jobs, and we like our people to manage the jobs because they understand our culture and what we find as quality work and so on and so forth. Is that something that you two could do for us?
So as far as the staffing is really dependent upon the total funding and
Yes.
How much of that is rebuild versus overlay type work. The PCI rating for the arterial street network is currently at about a 55. Mm-hmm. The concern with staying at the existing 2 million is that over time, if that's all we do, you're going to see that PCI average decline as opposed to stay level or increase. So any little bit that we're adding to get it to at least stay where it's at so we're not losing ground or increasing that is a benefit to the street network and to the citizens. how much money that is going to play into what does that scenario for resourcing look like. So if we're talking $1 million, so you have a total of $3 million, we might be able to do a rebuild every couple of years and overlays on the other years. It might look something like that. If it's more than that, if you're talking about a $4 million program, then it might be something where you're doing a rebuild as well as overlays in each year. It depends upon how far
Well,
you
I
can
think
take those
that
funds.
our goal is that you recommended that we have 7 or 5 million in that account.
So currently you have $2 million in the account to
But
reach
you've got carryover.
regardless of the carryover, because in order to, the way the programming works and does the scenarios for the 20-year cycle is it's looking at the current condition, and if you put X amount of money in every year, what is that condition going to be at the end of that 20-year period? So with that, it predicted that to get from our 55 to a 70 in 20 years, it took about $7 million of funding to get to that point. Again, it's all about how much does the council actually want to try to fund versus what are we trying to hit. That's just one 20-year period. You could have a 50-year period to get to your goal, which is going to change what that funding is needed on an annual basis. As far as coming up with the numbers, I'm going to defer that part to Shelley.
To do that, to come up with the numbers, I would need from Public Works a list of the streets that they would plan on doing and prioritize those projects, because every street has a different cost and whether we have to get into utilities or not. So I would have to ask Public Works to prepare a timeline and the streets over, say, a 5-year period that they would like to or think are critical and need to be replaced or overlaid or rebuilt. And then from there, we could then start applying the dollars and any staffing that may be required.
Claude, Councilmember DeCoursey, and
Yeah,
then
and-
we would like to hear from.
No, thank you for that, Shelley, because that was going to be my exact question, because I think we do need that. I mean, we keep asking for the Gantt charts, okay? But I think we do need that to give us a more progressive understanding of where we need to go. And again, I think if we take a look at the amount of dollars, and again, the recommendation that I've made is, we look at that, the $1 million, we currently have the 1.3 this year, but let's go beyond that now because we know what we have this year. But planning for the following year and the year after, adding that 1 million, perhaps out of the general fund, hopefully we can, we'll see. But then tacking on that extra 500,000. But then Ingrid giving us in the work chart of the flow of the work, look at what we get and which roads take that priority for that extra $1.5 million. And then where we go for 1.75, where we go for 2 million. And I would recommend we take a look right now, just capping this at $2 million as we go forward and see over the next 5, 7, maybe 10 years of what that gets us. And then, future councils can look at that as we go forward and say, by the way, maybe we should put $3 million in. But, looking at this upward hill that we're on, okay, can we continue to use puns here?
Yeah.
And looking at achieving that $7 million, I think we need to disassociate ourselves from the 7 million and associate ourselves with the pavement rating. And if our goal is over the next 20 years, 70, then let's look at the rating and how we get to that rating and then incrementally add the dollars over that period of time. So this could take us 20, 25 years to get to that point and finally achieve the $7 million that we need to annually do that. But in Councilmember Baggett's approach of looking at, kind of our fund that we would have for preservation, I think that it gives us an opportunity as well, like you say, Ingrid, to go in, we look at our conditions, but visually look at that. And it gives us a better opportunity to immediately attack issues related to preservation. And I think that's where we need to go with this whole process. So that's what I'm recommending to the ad hoc, in my opinion, of how we should go forward with this.
Let's let Councilmember Pelosa, do you have any thoughts you want to, you haven't had a chance to share what you're thinking, and then we'll go to Councilmember Baggett.
Thank you. Looking at this spreadsheet, the 7 a.m., 49 a.m., 7:49 a.m. spreadsheet.
Yes.
So What can we delve out of this for extra money for 2018? The 904,000?
For 2018?
Yeah. I'm trying to understand those numbers.
Yes, but we can take the real estate excise tax money for 2018, the 904,000, but realizing that some of these things still need to be done, in particular the city hall, so we're just kind of sliding the can or kicking the can down the road a piece. We should have some new real estate excise tax dollars in 2019 that we could then allocate towards that project, those two projects.
So is this committee interested in using any of this money that can be delayed, the REIT money, that the park impact fees? Is anybody interested in using some of that money for this year or next year, I mean?
Well, I think we have a good approach here. My only concern is, and we've talked about this before, with the city hall issues. I'm not concerned about the structural repairs on the brick facade of the building. And again, you know, just a visual walk around with, you know, my 2,000 years of experience in construction management. You know, I don't see any significant impacts of the brick structure failing the building. We may need to do some sealing, we may do some of that work, but, you know, and perhaps I would like to see us do a needs assessment that gives us, again, a little forensic study to get a better understanding of the condition of it, but visually it doesn't look bad. My concern would be is the roof. You know, if we're in a situation where we start having roof failures, we got a tremendous failure in the building, which can lead to structural failures of the building. So, yeah, Bill, I would agree, but I would want us to take a look at both those number one priorities and get a better understanding of where that's at. But definitely look at the roof and see whether or not we could last another 1, 2, 3 years before we do anything with the roof.
Well, what I was trying to get at was, okay, all these numbers add up to what? What can be used? And is there anything else under the rug, so to speak, that we can add to this spreadsheet?
Not at this time.
Nothing.
This is what we have.
This is what we have.
we've received from the departments, and
So aside from all of the can delay 1 year, what does all that amount to?
well, if you take everything that can delay, I would pretty much we're swapping out parks impact fees for a couple of projects there. And so that money is freed up both in 2017, 2018. I would say that you could probably take that whole column, because again, we're going to be receiving new real estate excise tax revenues. We are in 2018, 2019, that we can then budget these items if they need to be done.
I'm trying to understand what available money we have from this spreadsheet. That's what I'm trying to
Okay.
understand.
Everything that's put on here is what the directors have come forward and said that they can delay. So having said that, if they can delay it, then the money is available in 17 and 18 to be used elsewhere. But at some point, we may have to do these projects. M&O, we really need to do those projects down there. We've been delaying that for quite some time. I would say the 2018 projects, the 900,000, and we should then in 2019 or 20 do budget the City Hall roof replacement with REIT money that we will receive in 2019, 2020. I think
You know, I don't want to put you on the spot trying to figure this on your head right now, but I would like to see, what does this represent in extra money?
I thought that
It's right there.
it's $3 million.
Almost 3 million right there.
Yeah.
But doesn't that 3 million, see, I don't know, by looking at this, I don't know what those pieces are. What elements of the $2.9 million represents this money that are shown in those two columns?
Well, we have the general fund money for 2017 of 1.3 million. And then the rest listed above must be another
1.6.
600,000 to give you 19.
1.5.
Okay. And in the other column, we haven't done anything from the general fund, and those cuts add up to $900,000.
But I do like the idea that the gentleman referenced having a settle-loan account and doing the formula like you suggested, Claude.
I like the idea of a formula that we come up with that's based with a mix of common sense, so that then in 2019, when we're starting the budget process, this roads and stuff has our attention, and we can look at what we want to put in there, and that can be a starting point for that department. I also, when you look at costing this out, I'm hearing a lot from my constituents about the cost of water. And I go through and explain to them that some of our pipes are old logs that have been cut out, because Wayne Osborne has one of those in his yard. And some of them are old clay pots and so on and so forth. But I think that it would be nice, as we look at the roads that we're replacing, that we try to ease the impact that we have on the water tubing or whatever, piping, and its impact on the water rates, because, and especially now, people are really ouching when they continue to try to water their yards. So, yes, Councilmember Pelosa.
So I guess we have kind of set a stage for the staff to come back to us, correct?
Yes.
And I'd like to just talk about, real briefly, about the $20 card tab.
Okay. That is what this is about,
I
isn't it?
know.
Yes.
So my feeling is that based on all the taxes that have come upon all of us and the citizens of this town, that I still would like to see that become a moratorium for something future. So
we've given you the ideas of where we'd like to go next. How much time do you think it will take for you to prepare? That's a pretty involved process. Realizing that you do have full workloads, what would you advise be our next meeting date?
30 days? At least 30 days, at least a month.
Okay.
We're going into midterm right now.
Okay.
And preparing the midterm correction.
Yeah, and we're in our heaviest construction period right now, so my staff availability.
Do you want to just do it like
together
October?
is hard.
The first meeting in October?
That'd be great.
Oh, another question, yes.
So it's for Attorney Hyde. So Dan, you remember, what is our sunset date on the next moratorium we established?
I'd have to look that up, but I think that October would be getting close.
Yeah, I think if we look at that date and back it up from there, and Ingrid hopefully and Shelley, hopefully that gives you enough time to prepare everything, but let's use that date, because we don't want to get up against that again and have to go through a process where we're meeting to try and change something in an instant.
And Councilmember Baggett had a couple of comments.
Thank you. I'm not for expediency for the sake of expediency, but I think that we've drugged this thing out about as far as we can. I really would like to see us bring this thing to a head and conclude our recommendation to the council. And we've got X number of dollars here that the staff and the directorates have come up with. I think we have enough to create that reserve fund to get this ball rolling and get it started. I think we're pretty much in agreement. We don't want the $20 car tab fee. But, you know, to keep dragging this thing out and getting down into the weeds and the mud level here, I think we're just gilding the lily here a little bit. And I think we really ought to move ahead with this thing and make a recommendation to the entire council. We've got the money in here. If necessary, we can amend the budget if we have to, you know. Again, we're going to continually do that as we proceed through the year, but, you know, let's fish or cut bait, folks. Let's do it. And I think we've got enough information here, and I think we've caused the staff and the directorates to bleed a lot. And I think we probably should have enough here to get started. That would be my recommendation, along with the perpetual information that Councilmember DeCoursey has come up with for the future years, that we build on that account and keep putting that money in reserve. Thank you.
I'd like to add that I think this has become larger than just the $20 tab. I think we, by moving this slowly, we have a better understanding. I feel more comfortable about our 70 PSI. Is it PSI? Yeah.
PCI.
PCI. I feel more comfortable about that level. I like to spend time and come up with a long-range plan so that we don't have to spend your time and our time every year trying to figure out how we're going to come up with $400,000 or $800,000 for potholes. So we have done a good job here, and we don't need to rush it in the final steps. And if we have to go for another extension in order to get the plan or the concept, whatever, that we're going to implement when we do future budget planning, I think it's well worth it. Councilmember Pelosi.
I would like to ask Mr. Hyde a question. The card tab, $20 card tab, what is the bottom line on that? As far as the city of Auburn notifying the state, or what's the dialogue?
Well, there are some requirements that we would have to make sure that we covered because it requires the state to be involved in the collection processes. I'm not sure exactly if that's what you're referring to, but there are some things that would need to be done so that even if we made a decision today to move forward with that, were that the decision, it would still be, there'd be a lag. There'd be time that would need to be necessary for that to be done.
I understood that part of it from our previous meeting.
The ordinance that was passed to do the tab fee was submitted to Department of Licensing, so they do have that ordinance. But there's also other things, contracts, interlocals that we need to sign with the agency for them to collect. So they do have the ordinance, but they don't have the interlocal, hasn't been returned to them. So they're just kind of in a holding pattern at this point, waiting to see if we sign the interlocal.
So, Dan, so until the council agrees on whatever our recommendations are, we can't turn the spigot off with the state?
You mean, are you talking about undoing the possibility? I'm not sure what you mean by turning the spigot off.
I'm not for a $20 card tab myself. So, but we do have an ordinance in place.
We have an ordinance, but it's been put on the back burner, so to speak.
Right. when do we close it out?
Well, that depends on the council's action. Conceivably,
Okay.
council could move down the road. I mean, whether or not you needed to extend the current holding pattern or not, the council could decide to either undo the ordinance, repeal the ordinance entirely, or take some other action. The only thing that I would say is the council action in connection with that may be something that could be revisited down the road, so long as the statutory authority is still there.
And that would be the TBD board, not the council.
I meant that.
Yeah, God, I'm glad you made that clarification, yeah. Okay, Councilmember DeCoursey.
Well, two things. I think, Councilmember Pelosi, at our next TBD meeting, we have that opportunity to either extend, like we did before, 120 days, extend indefinitely, remove. So I think, we get to that meeting prior to that October date, whatever date is, and us as a board will need to make some sort of a legislative decision of where we go with that. The other is, I really like what Councilmember Baggett just proposed. We could keep beating this horse to death if we keep going and going, but we've got $2.9 million here that are shown on paper. And again, I think the only thing that I would like to see, and Shelley, you've already mentioned that, if we look at doing the roof replacement 2019, we're probably okay with that. I don't think we're going to have any significant issues between now and then that's going to, unless somebody comes up and says we got a real problem, so we could probably hold off until that period of time. So I would actually like to move that we take the 2.891 million and forward this to the council, the full council, for approval to add this money into the road projects and allow us to go forward from there. And I'd make a motion to that effect.
I second that.
Well, we have a motion and have a second, so
Yes.
now we have a discussion. And can I do some discussion? Okay. The rebuild on the 10th green, to me, is very, 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 very important. I know it sounds a little strange, but, because I'm not a golfer. But that is one of the best golf courses around, and Daryl, don't we annually do 1 or 2 holes?
Yeah, we're doing the first hole in about a month, and then we were planning on doing the 10th hole next year. There might be a different source for that, I'm not sure.
Could we rename it the 19th, and we use the...
It's usually what not what the 19th hole is,
Okay.
but we could maybe make an exception in this case. Let me speak real briefly just to the parks ones and the environmental boardwalk. I think all three of those, the Lakeland Hills, Watts acquisition, and boardwalk could easily be all moved into park impact fee, so that would free up the $225,000. I think that adds up to. I'm just doing this top of my head. The other one that was put on this list, and I think we were requested to put on all the things that were funded by REIT with a priority. I don't think at the time that we were supplying these, the conversation was if you put them on the list, that meant they were all gone. My concern would be with the public art one, in that we've selected the artist and they're coming to the council in 2 or 3 weeks, I think, with the artist contract for that one. So it was one that was underway but hadn't been contracted yet. That's how it got on the list. So I would say the ones that I'm in charge of, there's kind of 3.5 on here. The environmental park we kind of share with community development. The one, that's using REIT funds that I'm most concerned about would be the public art piece at the Her property, just because we're a long ways down the road on that project.
Do you have any discussion items? Okay.
Tell us about the 10th green.
Well, 10th green gets...
Is it in that bad a shape?
Well, in the 5, sometimes more wet months, it gets, it's one of the older pop-up greens. There's 3 of them left. One, the par 4, was that par 3, number 4, and 10, that get very mushy in the winter. They don't drain well at all. And so we're replacing each of those over time. The number one will be this year. So they're very old greens that don't have drainage underneath of them. That's
So-
why they roll different and get footprints in the
What's
winter.
the plan for the 10th? The redesign of it, or?
You'll take the existing sod off of it and set it aside, then you run trenches of drainage, add about
Okay,
12
but
inches
it'll
of
still be
sand.
a raised grade.
It'll be recontoured somewhat to have better drainage with a sand base instead of a loam base.
I think we should recommend proceeding with that. I mean, it's a revenue, the golf course is a revenue source.
We have worked so hard to have a regional golf course, and I was on finance 6 years ago when we began the process of trying to make that competitive. I'll let you have the non-leaky roofs if you'll let me have the 10th green.
Well, let me back up a little bit, because Councilmember Bagley and I do like to play out there.
I don't
And
like
my
it.
preference, Darrell, would be that all 18 holes have flat, level greens so I can make putts. But I know that's not possible. So I do like the 10th. I actually do a better job on the 10th. I do some of the other holes, especially one with water, because I can't get over that one. You know, we're talking $27,000 here, okay? You know, I would say we go ahead and approve the 2.9 million and work within the range of only $27,000, which is fairly insignificant in $2.9 million. And Darrell, with your help, kind of see where we go, or perhaps Shelley, if there's any other possible way, we can look at funding the 10th green rebuild. Let's do that, but you know, let's not debate $27,000 here forever, because we got to rebuild the 10th green. I'd like to see us go forward and move this on.
That's what offers the challenge out there on that golf course.
Well, I think when Darrell's bringing a report to us, one of our study sessions on parks, and we can dialogue on the golf course at that time, because I want to dialogue on some of these other issues, like the Lakeland Hills Nature Area, the acquisition of Mary Olson Farm, and the Auburn Environmental Boardwalk, and some of the parks issues. Yes, yes.
And in doing that, we may find as we go forward, and I really like the idea of bringing this back to a council study session, by the way, not coming back to ad hoc committee. We may find this 2.9 million, it can only be 2.5 or 2.6, okay?
Still progress.
So let's let it work, let the system work as the system's going to work, so we can go forward today.
I'm going to call for the question. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Okay, thank you. So we have to end now. And our next meeting will be when?
So you just voted to move forward to a recommendation to the full council.
Okay,
I don't know that you
need another
need
one.
another meeting.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yep, we'll put it on the study session agenda when Ingrid and Shelley are ready for us to move it to that level. Thank you.